Welcome back to the channel. I somewhat recently did a weapon guide to discuss different weapon types in the game and wanted to follow up and do a combat guide so you can hopefully learn some skills in order to put those weapons to good use against the Voidlings. As always, before we get into the video, please do not forget to like and subscribe so you do not miss out on any new guides and tutorials on Lens Island. Now I'm going to be sort of covering the basics in the beginning and then get into different strategies in the end, so grab your sword and follow along. Starting off, your most important tool in your entire arsenal is your rolling ability. This will get you out of combat in a pinch if you get overwhelmed, and believe me, you do not want to get overwhelmed because you'll take some serious damage and your Len just may bite the dust because of it. You can also use roll offensively and quickly move behind an enemy for a flanking attack. But pay attention though, because your roll has a cooldown, so if you miss rolling behind the enemy and end up in the dead center of them, you're gonna have a bad time. Now moving into the actual combat, you basically have two types of attacks. Your standard attack and your special attack, with obvious crit variations of each, so technically speaking 4 different types of attacks. Standard attacks are just basic attacks when starting an attack chain, or if you miss a critical hit, which is displayed by the white circle. These attacks do obviously standard damage and in reality should be used as minimally as possible. What I mean by this is that you should be trying to hit as many critical hits as possible to minimize just doing standard attack damage. You'll be able to tell whether you're landing critical hits by if the Voidling flashes gold or red. Notice when I successfully connect a critical hit, not only the white circle will turn gold, but the enemy will flash gold. Now if I'll only connect a standard non-crit attack, then they will flash red. Now your special attack should be used as much as possible, but only after your standard attack so that your special attack hits as a critical hit. This is because you will actually knock back and temporarily stun enemies with the crit special attack. This works with every weapon out there that has the option to have a special attack, so pour one out for a homie starter weapon that doesn't have a special attack. Now there's a couple ways you can approach each fight. One of my favorite attack sequences, which I've nicknamed Gorilla Lenfair. I love Gorilla Lenfair if I'm fighting a lot of enemies at once. It basically revolves around you priming a special crit attack. It looks like this. You've got a horde of Voidlings chasing you, and you know if you step into the ring with all of them at once, it's going to end ugly for you. After pulling a slight tactical retreat and you've put some distance between you and them, I'll do a standard attack followed by a special attack, ideally hitting a critical hit, which will push the enemies away from you and do a ton of damage. I'll also immediately roll away because you do not want to obviously take any damage while doing this. This attack is great because you really don't need anything special like a shield, and you really don't even need food because you ideally won't get hurt, so it's great to utilize this early game. The really only con with this is that if you don't time it right and your special misses and your roll is cooling down, you're kind of screwed, and it also takes a little bit more time to kill the enemies. Now once you've got a good shield in your arsenal though, you really don't have to play as timidly like I just mentioned before, as if you take damage, your shield would negate a portion of the damage even if you're not actively blocking. So you can now have a little bit more aggressive playstyle and start using our roll as an offensive maneuver to throw our Len behind the enemy Voidling, which I've coined as the shut up and dance attack sequence. Basically the general idea is to roll through the enemy and end up behind them and lead with the standard attack, then switch into your special attacks. By the time your special attacks are all on cooldown, either the enemy will be dead or you can roll away to put a little distance to avoid taking too much damage. This is better used on larger enemies since they're a bit slower and bigger and pose more of a threat. The big pro of this attack is that you can generally do a lot more damage in an entire sequence before having to retreat away, which makes taking out enemies so much quicker. The con is that you'll probably take a little bit more damage, so you'll likely want to have a decent shield plus a better means to heal yourself. Now my last favorite attack series really is just for those who don't want to dance around with your enemy and rather just do your best to absorb damage with a massive shield. You'll focus more on slugging your way into the battlefield with a heavier shield and potentially a slower weapon. The Turtle Len attack sequence is less of an attack sequence and more of a combat style, as it requires you to basically shield up when the enemy is attacking and attack when they stop attacking. You'll do high amounts of damage, but you'll also likely take a little bit more damage than the attack sequences that I mentioned before. You'll still be able to roll away if you get absolutely swarmed, but you'll want to stay in the fight as much as possible. The pro is that you're able to take a little bit more damage and shake it off, but the major con is that if you're fighting multiple enemies at once, you'll likely struggle a bit. Now, a skillful Len is the Len that doesn't just choose a single type of attack style, but incorporates some variation of each depending on what situation you get into. Now, before you go running off into combat, I recommend watching my weapons guide, where I go through each weapons class and talk about the pros and cons of each, which will be helpful in deciding how you want to approach combat. For example, if you like to stay more nimble, then a sword and a lightweight shield would be a good option to use with the quicker attack styles like I mentioned earlier. Or if you like hammers and heavy shields, then you may want to focus more on turtling attack styles. I hope the video helps you feel more confident with combat in Lynn's Island. If you have any questions or have any build recommendations that you like, please drop them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time, YouTube. Peace out.